Hi there, Paul Kirtley here, and welcome to another video. And I would like to share with you a simple technique, some might even call it a trick today, with regards to using fatwood for lighting your fires. And this is something I use when I'm out in the bush, and you could call it a bushcraft technique, but it's much more widely useful for camping and traveling generally, because you can get hold of this stuff even when you're buying logs from stores sometimes. So say you're on a campsite, there's a fire pit, you've bought some logs, you've had to buy some logs, you'll often find this in a store sold as a fire lighter as well, and so you can use it in those circumstances as well as harvesting it naturally out when you're out in the bush. What is it? Well, it's a naturally resin infused piece of wood, and it's typically from pine. And where I found it in the bush is when a pine tree has fallen over, when it's still alive, or it's been cut and the tree is still bringing up resin, it's still bringing up moisture from the ground, and the stump tends to get very full of resinous material as a result of that. Also, the trunk can have, particularly towards the base, can have a lot of resin in it after the tree's gone down and it has seasoned. Even dead standing trees I've found, particularly in northern Sweden, when I've been making larger fires and we've split wood down to start, at the base of the trunk it's often quite resinous, and you'll find fatwood and inside, and you can see it's slightly pink as well. That gives you some clue as to the turpentine content of that pine. This is something that I've used in lots of different situations. I've used it miles out in the wilderness in winter. I've used it on car camping trips around national parks and traveling around, and I've used it in lots of other places as well. So let's have a look. This is easy to light with a cigarette lighter. Yep. That's one way of lighting it. I'm not even going to demonstrate that. Just get a thin bit, light it with a cigarette lighter. That's great. Matches, you might need to thin this down a little bit, shave a little bit off. You can still light it with a match. But what I really want to share with you today is how to light it with a ferro rod, because that's something I'm typically traveling with. It's hard to sometimes have matches and lighter and ferro rod when you're traveling around all the time, particularly if you're traveling internationally. And if I choose to take one thing, I'll take a ferro rod, because it's widely applicable and you can get so many fires from it as well. So I want to show you with a ferro rod, because that's the one thing that maybe takes a little bit more skill, a little bit more preparation. I want to make sure everyone knows how to do this. And also I'm going to do it with a pocket knife, because again, let's just imagine we're traveling with not much gear. We can do this with a simple knife. You don't need a fancy bushcraft knife, you don't need any fancy tools. A pocket knife. This is a Swiss Army knife that I typically like to take with me when I'm traveling or backpacking, or if I'm not taking bigger bushcraft tools, and I hate using that term, bigger tools, bigger cutting tools that are appropriate for the environment. If I'm just camping and I don't need a cutting tool very much, I will still have a multi-tool or a Swiss Army knife, and this is a Swiss Army knife that I like. If you'd like me to make a video about why I like this, let me know in the comments below, and maybe I'll do that at some point. Okay, so this has got quite a good blade on it. I keep it sharp, and what we're going to do is just take our knife and basically make some mini feather sticks. Yes, if the curls come off, we can still use them, but at this point I still want them to be attached. I'm just going to run my knife down. It doesn't have to be the most amazing, fantastic feather sticks. This stuff's pretty flammable. I just want to create something that's got a bit more surface area, that's going to accept a spark and more readily. This would also be very good for lighting with a lighter or a match, as is at the moment. It will catch more easily. If you've got a chunk like this, you shave a few shavings off like this and then light that with a match. That's going to go up much more readily than trying to light the whole thing. So I just find an edge, I work down the edge with my knife. I'm just creating shavings, okay? I'm not trying to be super finessed with my feather sticks. I'm not creating a work of art here. I'm just making a mini feather stick from resin infused wood, okay? Like so. And I've got a few shavings there, which I will keep. Also, I would say, I'll just add to the batoning with knives debate. Just poke that lion. If you want thinner splints to help you light your fire, just gently tap the knife and then twist, and you can break off some splints off a fatter piece as well, and that'll help you get your fire going initially, like so. So you've got some thin ends to get into those initial flames. Might you need more than one feather stick? Maybe, but the great thing about Fatwood, and particularly if you've got some splints, is you just need to get one little feather stick going, and that's probably enough. The reason we're really making the feather stick here is so that we can light it with a spark. What I'm also going to do is just, I'm going to make some fine, I'm going to do a couple of shavings in each side so I get a bit of a ridge in the middle. So I've got a ridge here, and I'm just going to shave down that. Make some small shavings, very fine shavings, the finest I can make them. What I can also do, this is a good technique, although Fatwood sometimes doesn't like this as much because it's quite sticky and resinous, but I'm going to try and just scrape it. And that's working quite well here. And I get some wood shavings, really fine shavings. So I'm running my knife perpendicular to the axis of the wood and just creating some shavings at the base there. That's coming up really nicely actually. Okay, so I've got my little feather stick with some shavings there. Okay. Now I'm not going to use the knife with my ferro rod. This type of knife doesn't work very well with a ferro rod, so I always make sure I carry the striker. I've got my ferro rod, and now I can just drop a spark into here, into this area here where there's lots of little shavings. So the action is just to push some big sparks off the end with my thumb and finger, like so, just using the striker, not using the knife, just pushing some big sparks like that, and I'm going to drop them into the base here where I've got all these fine shavings. And there we go, that's lit. That then takes onto the slightly bigger feathers. Okay, I don't have a full fire lay here, but I would put that on my base. So I just put some logs down, some split wood or some logs, and then I can put my splints on the top, which will put my rest of my shavings on there. You can see all the black smoke coming off this, you can see the resin in it. Then I can carry on putting my splints, slightly bigger splints, then I can just go to my standard firewood once I've got this going. There's a lot of heat in here, there's a lot of energy. Wow, there's a lot of black smoke coming out of there. So that's it, really quick and simple, but just that extra little bit of preparation really helps. Okay, now I've got quite a lot of materials online about fire lighting. I'd like to point your attention to one in particular, which is my Fire Essentials mini masterclass. Link to that below. It is a paid course, but I think if you want to learn a bit more about fire lighting that will serve you well in many different parts of the world and the many different circumstances, check that out. It's quite a short training, it's very concise, there's full details on the page, linked below and here. Check that out. And if you would like to learn more about the ferro rods that I really like to use, this being one of them, there's a few different types that I really rate, then check out the video that's coming up here right now, and I'll see you there.